Example, for creating a grade report. The mid-semester point at your local university is approaching. The registrar's office wants to prepare the grade reports as soon as the students' grades are recorded. However, some of the students enrolled have not yet paid their tuition. If a student has paid the tuition, the grades are shown on the grade report together with the grade point average. If a student has not paid the tuition, the grades are not printed. For these students, the grade report contains a message indicating that the grades have been held for non-payment of the tuition. The grade report also shows the amount due. The registrar's office wants your help in writing a program that can analyze the students' data and print the appropriate grade reports. The data is stored in the following form. The first line indicates the number of students enrolled and the tuition rate per credit hour. The student's data is given thereafter. Here is a sample input file. For easy reference, let us assume that the name of the input file is stdata.txt. The first line indicates that the input file contains 3 students' data and that the tuition rate is $345 per credit hour. Next, the course data for student Lisa Miller is given. Lisa Miller's ID is 890238. She has paid the tuition and she is taking 4 courses. The course number for the mathematics class she is taking is MTH 345. The course has 4 credit hours. Her mid-semester grade is an A, and so on. The output for this program will be a file containing the output in a given format. We must order the output according to the course number. To calculate the GPA, we will assume that the grade A is equivalent to 4 points, B is equivalent to 3 points, C is equivalent to 2 points, D is equivalent to 1 point, and F is equivalent to 0 points. The main components of the program are the course and the student. Let us first describe the course component. The main characteristics of a course are the course name, course number, and number of credit hours. The basic operations that need to be performed on an object of the course type are: set the course information, print the course information, show credit hours, show the course number. The following class defines the course as an abstract data type. Function setCourseInfo sets the course information according to the parameters. Function print prints the course information. Function getCredits returns the course credit hours. Function getCourseNumber returns the course number. Function getCourseName returns the course name. And Constructor initializes objects according to the parameters. We will use private variables to store the course name, course number, and course credit hours. You can describe a class and its members graphically by using a diagram known as the Unified Modeling Language Diagram. The Uml Class Diagram of the class course type looks like this. Next, let's discuss the definitions of the functions to implement the operations of the class course type. The first function, setCourseInfo, has 3 parameters: course name, course number, and the credits. This function sets the value of the private member variables according to the values of the parameters. The function print prints the course information. The parameter outF specifies the output device. Because we need to print the course name and course number left justified, we need to set the left manipulator. Before printing the credit hours, the manipulator is set to be right justified. Therefore, in the function definition, the first statement sets the left manipulator. The second statement prints the course number. The third statement prints the course name. The fourth statement sets the right manipulator. And the last statement prints the credit hours. The constructor was declared with the default parameters. If no values are specified when the object is declared, the object is initialized with the default values. Otherwise, the object is initialized according to the parameters. The definitions of getCredits, getCourseNumber, and getCourseName are as follows. Next, let us discuss the student component. The main characteristics of a student are the student name, student ID, number of courses enrolled in, course name, and the grade for each course. Because each student has to pay tuition, we will also include a member to indicate whether the student has paid the tuition. The basic operations to be performed on an object of type student type are as follows. Set the student information. Print the student information. Calculate the number of credit hours taken. Calculate the GPA. Calculate the billing amount. Because the grade report will print the courses in ascending order, we will also need to sort the courses according to the course number. In this example, we derive the class student type from the class person type. So let us first have a look at the class person type. The most common attributes of a person are the person's first name and last name. The typical operations on a person's name are to set the name and print the name. The following class defines student type as an abstract data type. We will assume that a student takes no more than 6 courses per semester. The class student type is derived from class person type and is a public inheritance. Therefore, all public members of class person type are public members of class student type. Let us list the public member functions. Function setInfo sets the student's information. Function print prints the student's grade report. The default constructor initializes the member variables when the object is created. Function getHoursEnrolled returns the total number of credit hours a student is taking. Function getGPA returns the grade point average. Function billingAmount returns the tuition fees. Next, we will list the private members of the class student type. The function sortCourses sorts the courses enrolled array according to the course number. The user of the class student type does not need to access this array, so it is declared as a private member. Next, we will list the variables. SID is an int variable to store the student ID. Number of courses is an int variable to store the number of courses the student is enrolled in. Is tuition paid is a bool variable to indicate whether the tuition is paid. Courses enrolled is an array to store the courses. Courses grade is an array to store the course grades. You can describe a class and its members graphically by using a diagram known as the Unified Modeling Language Diagram. The Uml Class Diagram of the class student type looks like this. Next, we'll discuss the definitions of the functions to implement the operations of the class student type. The function setInfo initializes the private member variables according to the parameters. The class student type is derived from the class person type, and the variables to store the first name and last name are private member variables of that class. Therefore, you must call the member function setName of the class person type and pass the appropriate parameters to set the first and last names. Set the remaining member variables according to the parameters. To sort the array courses enrolled by course number, you must call the function sortCourses. The default constructor initializes the private member variables to the default values. Because the private member variable courses enrolled is of type course type and is an array, the default constructor of the class course type executes automatically, and the entire array is initialized. Next, we discuss the definition of the function print. In the definition of the function print, parameter outF specifies the output device and parameter tuition rate stores the tuition rate. This function prints the grade report of each student. This statement outputs the student name by calling the function getFirstName and getLastName. This statement outputs the student's ID. This statement outputs the number of courses in which the student is enrolled. This statement sets the left manipulator, and this statement outputs the heading. This statement sets the right manipulator, and the following for loop outputs the course's information. If the student has paid tuition, it outputs the grade. Otherwise, it outputs 3 stars. This statement prints the total number of credit hours by calling the function getHoursEnrolled. To output the GPA and billing amount in a fixed decimal format with the decimal point in trailing zeros, this statement sets the precision to 2 decimal places. This statement checks if is tuition paid is true. If it is true, it outputs the GPA. Otherwise, it outputs the billing amount and a message about withholding the grades. Next, we type in the definition of the function getHoursEnrolled. This function has no parameters. It calculates and returns the total credit hours that a student is taking. These credit hours are needed to calculate both the GPA and the billing amount. The total credit hours are calculated by adding the credit hours of each course in which the student is enrolled. Because the credit hours for a course are in the private member variable of an object of type course type, we use the member function getCredits of the class course type to retrieve the credit hours. Next, we type the definition of the function billing amount. This function has a parameter of type double to specify the tuition rate. It calculates and returns the billing amount. Next, we type the definition of function getGPA. It uses a for loop to find the equivalent points for each grade and add the points. Then the value of sum is divided by the total credit hours the student is taking and is returned. The function sortCourses sorts the array courses enrolled by course number. To sort the array, we use a selection sort algorithm. Because we will compare the course numbers, which are strings, and private member variables of the class course type, we first retrieve and store the course numbers in local variables. Compare course numbers to sort the array courses enrolled. Now that we have designed the classes course type and student type, we will use these classes to complete the program. We will restrict our program to process a maximum of 10 students. Because the print function of the class student type does the necessary computations to print the final grade report, the main program has very little work to do. All that is left for the main program is to declare the objects to hold the student's data, load the data into these objects, and then print the grade reports. Because the input is in a file and the output will be sent to a file, we declare stream variables to access the input and output file. The main algorithm for the program is as follows. Declare the variables. Open the input file. If the input file does not exist, exit the program. Open the output file. Get the number of students registered and the tuition rate. Load the student's data. Print the grade report. The main function uses the following variables to manipulate data. An array of student type to store the student's data. An int variable to store the number of students. A variable of type double to store the tuition rate, and an input stream variable and an output stream variable to access the input and output files. To simplify the complexity of the main function, the main program uses two functions, getStudentData and printGradeReports, which are described next. Next, we type the definition of the function getStudentData. This function has three parameters. A parameter to access the input file, a parameter to access the array student list, and a parameter for the number of students registered. We need to declare several local variables to read and store the data. fname is a variable to store the first name. lname is a variable to store the last name. id is a variable to store the student ID. Number of courses is a variable to store the number of courses. isPaid is a variable to store yes or no. That is the tuition paid? isTuition paid is a variable to store true or false. cname is a variable to store the course name. cnumber is a variable to store the course number. Credits is a variable to store the course credit hour. These are the loop control variables. An array of objects to store the course information. An array of type char to hold the course grades. This statement inputs the student's first name, the last name, student ID, and the value y or n to indicate if the student has paid the tuition. This statement checks if the variable isPaid is y or n. If it is paid, set isTuitionPaid to true, else set isTuitionPaid to false. Next, this statement gets the number of courses the student is taking. For each course, it gets the course name, course number, credit hours, and grade, and stores the information into the array courses. Lastly, this statement stores the data into the array student list. Next, we type the definition of the function printGradeReport. This function prints the student's grade reports. It has four parameters: ofStreamVariableOutFile, array student list, which holds students' data, number of students, and tuition rate. For each student, this function calls the function print of the class student type to print the grade report. To see the complete program listing, refer to this programming example in Chapter 11 of your text. A sample run looks like this.